What if I told you that everything we've been taught about getting rich is completely backward? Seriously, we are constantly told that building wealth is all about complicated math, complex formulas, and, having some fancy Ivy League education. But in this explainer, we're going to uncover a fascinating truth. Financial success is actually a soft skill. It has way less to do with how smart you are and absolutely everything to do with how you behave.
Take Ronald Reed, for example. Ronald was a humble janitor and gas station attendant. He lived a remarkably simple, quiet life. But when he passed away in 2014, he literally made international headlines. Why? Because this unassuming janitor left behind a staggering $8 million in savings. And here is the craziest part. He didn't win the lottery, he didn't inherit a single dime, and he definitely didn't have some insider track on Wall Street. He just saved consistently and let the quiet, cinematic power of compounding do its thing over decades. So how exactly does an everyday person out-earn Wall Street elites? Well, Ronald Reed proved you don't need a Harvard diploma to win the money game. You just need to overcome the dangerous mental hurdles that trip up the rest of us. Today, we're breaking down the 5 most dangerous psychological traps of money and how mastering them can literally change your financial destiny forever. Let's get into it. Trap number 1, the trap of the free lunch. Volatility is a fee, not a fine.
Look, everybody wants the massive, life-changing returns of the stock market without actually paying the price. Imagine you had the foresight a decade ago to see that Netflix was going to take over the world, so you go all in. You'd be filthy rich today, right? Well, only if you could afford the psychological price. Because back in 2011, Netflix lost a massive amount of customers, and its stock violently plummeted by 80% from its peak in just a matter of months. Imagine watching 80% of your life savings just vanish. Could you stomach looking your spouse and kids in the eye, knowing you might have endangered their future and still not click sell? That gut-wrenching panic, that is the price of admission.
And hey, even if you play it relatively safe with a broad index fund, the market is still going to test your resolve. If you invested in the S&P 500 back in 1980, you would still have had to endure a combined total of 13 years where your portfolio was down 20%. You'd have to sit through 8 brutal months where half of your money was just gone. Volatility isn't a fine that you pay for making a mistake. It's the standard fee you pay for a brighter financial future. And if you dodge the fee, you dodge the reward.
Moving on to trap number 2, the trap of the bigger fish, or as I like to call it, the envy escalator.
Capitalism is perfectly designed to do 2 things incredibly well. 1, generate immense wealth, and 2, generate endless, crushing envy. Just look at the envy escalator. Take Bill. Bill is a highly specialized doctor making $500,000 a year. Top 1%, luxury cars, exotic vacations, the whole shebang. Bill feels incredibly successful until he buys a vacation home in the Hamptons and meets his neighbor, Stan. Now, Stan is a CEO making $10 million a year. Suddenly, Bill feels poor. But wait, Stan is childhood friends with Michael Jordan, who's worth $2 billion. Next to Jordan, Stan's $10 million looks like pocket change. And Jordan? He occasionally goes to parties with Jeff Bezos, who is sitting on $200 billion. You see the problem? There is always, always a bigger fish. The real danger of this envy escalator is that it pushes really smart people to do incredibly foolish things. They over-leverage their portfolios to climb to the next rung. They risk their reputations on insider trading. They destroy their families because they're literally never home. To survive this trap, you absolutely have to define what enough means for you. You must refuse to risk the things you actually have and need just to chase something you don't have and frankly don't even need.
That brings us to trap number 3, the trap of judgment. Crazy is in the eye of the beholder. We constantly judge other people's financial decisions without realizing we are looking through entirely different lenses. We all have different childhoods, different educations, different emotional triggers. This right here is a perfect example of how the wealth mindset and the poverty mindset clash. Statistics show that the lowest income households in the US spend over $400 annually on lottery tickets. Now, combine that with the terrifying fact that roughly a third of Americans cannot afford a $400 emergency. From a wealthy or even middle-class perspective, this seems like absolute madness, right? Like, why blow your emergency fund on a statistical impossibility? But let's actually look through their lens for a second. If you live paycheck to paycheck, if you have no upward career trajectory, if putting your kids through college without crushing debt feels literally impossible, what does that lottery ticket represent? It isn't just a piece of paper. It is a perfectly rational purchase of hope.
It's the only time they get to buy into the dream that wealthier people are already living. Once we understand this, we stop blindly copying other people's investment strategies, like billionaires' portfolios or viral meme stocks, because we realize their financial game and their risk profile are completely different from our own.
Next up, trap number 4, the trap of prediction and surviving the black swan. As humans, we love to feel in control. We love trying to predict the market, but history proves that the most impactful financial events are the ones absolutely nobody saw coming. Author Nassim Taleb calls these extreme outliers black swans. Look at this timeline: the Great Depression, the outbreak of World War II, the 2008 financial crisis, the 2020 pandemic. These were world-shaping events that fundamentally altered the global economy, and they all share one vital characteristic. Nothing in history convincingly pointed to them happening before they did. They were unpredictable, carried extreme impact, and only seemed obvious in hindsight.
Because you can't predict the future, trying to jump in and out of the market to avoid crashes is basically financial suicide, and this chart proves it. If you invested in the S&P 500 over a 20-year period, your return would be a fantastic 291%. But if you tried to time the market and you missed just the 4 best-performing days over those 2 decades, your return plummets down to a mere 164%. Just 4 days. Stop listening to macro projections. The lesson here is simple. Prepare your portfolio to survive disasters, rather than arrogantly predicting you can dodge them.
Finally, we reach trap number 5, the trap of the smart cynic, the seduction of pessimism.
Have you ever noticed that bad news just sounds incredibly intellectual? If someone tells you the world is getting better, you instantly write them off as naive. But if someone tells you the world is ending, you pull up a chair and take notes. Notice the stark contrast here. If I give you a presentation warning about massive government debt, rampant inflation, and new global threats, I instantly command your attention. It sounds smart, urgent, sophisticated. But if I talk about incredible, long-term progress, how life expectancy is surging globally, how sustainable energy is plummeting in cost, or how computing power is exponentially exploding, you'd probably just shrug. Optimism rarely grabs headlines.
So why are we wired this way? Well, it actually isn't a modern failing. It is a literal evolutionary survival trait. As Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman points out, organisms that treat threats as more urgent than opportunities simply have a better chance to survive and reproduce. Millions of years ago, if our ancestors ignored an opportunity, maybe they missed a meal. But if they ignored a threat, they became a meal. In our brains, losses will always loom larger than gains.
The absolutely crucial takeaway here is understanding the timeline of news. Tragedies and setbacks make for highly persuasive cinematic stories because they happen overnight. A market crash happens in a day. A natural disaster happens in an hour. But progress? Progress compounds slowly, quietly over decades. To be a successful, wealthy investor, you have to actively fight your evolutionary instinct to panic at loud, sudden bad news and instead focus on the quiet, long-term reality of human progress. And that brings it all together. Becoming wealthy is not about complex algorithms. It is entirely about behavior. It's about embracing the terrifying fee of volatility. It's about stepping off that endless escalator of envy and finding your enough. It's having empathy for different financial lenses, choosing preparation over impossible predictions, and fiercely defying your evolutionary pessimism. These are the real, actionable soft skills of wealth. Think about your own financial decisions today and ask yourself this final, provocative question. Are you actually managing your money, or are your deep-seated psychological triggers managing you? The story of Ronald Read, the millionaire janitor, proves that the path to extreme wealth is genuinely open to anyone, because once you finally master your own mind, the money will naturally follow. Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.